Welcome to Inkwell Spoken Presents Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny. I am your host, Reggie Key, and today my special guest is Bokah Worjoloh. Bokah, what's going on with you, man?
All good, man. Glad to be here on here with you. I'm excited, bud.
I'm excited about it too, man. It's always good to reconnect with our UD brethren. we got a UD in office now that's at the highest office of the land. So it's good to
That's
be
right.
able to reconnect with my University of Delaware Blue Hens, my black blue hens. So you heard a little bit about the show. I think you've seen me interview a couple of other of our college compatriots. And so the thing that I do to jump off all these interviews is to ask you a really simple question, first of many. Bokah, do you see yourself as genius?
No.
No. All right. So I like, there was no hesitation. There was just like, yeah, nah.
No.
And
No.
that's cool because the majority are in agreement with you. Most of the people who I interview, most of the workshops that I do in schools, the vast majority of people are saying no, they don't see themselves as genius. And there's a reason I believe behind that. So you're in the right place. All right. When we finish, I'm gonna ask you the same question, how we started, and see if your answer changes. So we'll see
Okay.
what happens. All right, you ready?
Yeah, ready.
So here's my follow-up question. Who comes to mind when you hear this word genius?
The first person, honestly, today, Steve Jobs is the first person that comes to mind.
Steve Jobs. Now,
Yeah.
and I'm not, this is in no way meant to diminish Steve Jobs as a genius,
Yeah.
but do you look like Steve Jobs?
No.
No, not at all, right?
Mm-mm.
Most of the people, and this is especially true for minorities, most of the people who I interview and talk to, when they name the person that they view as genius, they look nothing like them. And there's something that happens when we identify genius in somebody that doesn't look like us that begins to disassociate us from that. Like, yeah, they got it, but I don't.
Right.
And so the number one answer that I typically get is Albert Einstein. And nobody looked like him.
No.
That dude was a one in a million type of face, right?
That's no doubt.
But what I did start to notice, Bokah, is the people who would answer in the affirmative and say, like, yes, I am genius. It's because they saw people like, not just that looked like them, but that were close to them. Like I've had some people say, yeah, my mom is a genius. My dad is a genius. And because of that relationship that they have with this person who they attribute to genius, they can then identify it for themselves. And so that's something that's very important. I'm not here to tell you, like I said, I'm not trying to convince you that Steve Jobs is not a genius, but I am trying to reveal and expose kind of a conditioning that we have. Nobody told us that Albert Einstein is the measure of genius, but most of the people just have that name in their mind. And so because they look at Einstein, and it's not that they say, I don't look like him, but they say like, he's a genius in physics. I don't know anything about physics. Don't ask me about the theory of relativity. I could care less about E equals MC squared. So therefore, no, I'm not a genius, right? And what I'm here to really talk to you about today is the fact that, again, I'm not taking anything away from Einstein, but he was only one type of genius.
Mm-hmm.
We typically associate genius to academics, like your GPA has to be a certain way. Your IQ test score has to be a certain way. And while that does help identify geniuses within that lane, there's a whole other realm of non-academic genius that we fit into, which is defined as my book defines it. It's defined by your passion, your talent, and your purpose. And so I'm here to say to you today, if we can identify what your passion, talent, and purpose are, we can unlock your genius.
I'm with it.
Odds are, Bokah, you're probably already walking in it. You just haven't put that label on it. And this workshop, this interview is all about labels because we get really accustomed to labels being put on us that are good and bad for us. And so if we begin with, outside of your name, if you begin with this next label of, hey, I'm a genius, it'll prevent other labels that people put on you and put on us, especially as Black men in this country. It'll prevent us from taking on labels that were never meant to define us. It'll prevent us from taking on labels that somebody else is putting on us to make their world make sense. But hey, when you put this label on me to make your world make sense, it diminishes my shine, though.
No question.
Right? So this is very much about identity, making sure that we all know who we are. So I have a quote that I want to read to you or speak to you. And it purportedly comes from Einstein. The Facebook bots have been getting on me lately, like that's incorrect, but it doesn't matter who it comes from. What it's saying is really important. So I want to say this quote to you. You let me know if you've heard it before, and then let me know how it hits you. All right.
Mhm.
You ready?
Yeah.
Here you go. If you judge a fish by how well it can climb a tree, it'll spend its entire life thinking it's stupid.
Never heard it.
Okay, you fooled me because you were shaking your head like
Yeah.
I thought you heard
No, no,
it.
no. I was following you. That's why. No, I
Okay,
never heard it, but makes total sense. That's not their thing.
explain it like I don't want to be the only one doing the majority of the talking.
Yeah.
Like unpack that for me a little bit.
Yeah, I mean, fish don't even live outside of water. They die outside of water. So
Oh,
they don't climb, they swim, you know. So to have them doing something that's outside of their nature it just doesn't make sense.
there it is. You said two things that I want to lock in on. You said like a fish out of water dies,
Mm-hmm.
and that's not their nature.
Mm-hmm.
Like I know things have been kind of topsy-turvy in the world for the past 2 years with COVID and everything, but Bokah, I'm telling you right now, if I look out this window and I see a fish in the tree, it's time to get off the planet.
It's no question.
It's a wrap. We need to get someplace else. Holler at Elon Musk, get on his rocket and go to another planet because something is terribly wrong with the Earth. We all know innately, just like we know that we have certain people that we associate to genius. Innately, we know that fish do not thrive outside of their element. Fish have gills, fins, and scales, and are streamlined to function well, to function at a high level in water. So why would a person begin to judge a fish by something it was never meant to do? But there are institutions in the world that do that to us,
Mm-hmm.
that we do it to ourselves. And when we start to look at Einstein's genius and measure ours by his, we're taking ourselves out of our element
Mm-hmm.
and now judging us based off of his element. Einstein's a bear. That dude belong in trees,
Mm-hmm.
follow the quote.
Yeah.
But to your point, if a fish stays out of water for too long trying to climb this tree, it's going to die.
Mm-hmm.
And Bokah, I feel like the little boy from Sixth Sense. I feel like I see dying genius,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I
Yeah.
feel like it's been my duty over the past couple of years to revitalize, resuscitate, and resurrect the dying genius that I see around me. All right.
Yeah.
So how I want to do that is to then begin to identify, to redefine passion as the first part of the three components that I told you about.
Mm-hmm.
So the same way that I'm going to ask you about genius, who comes to mind, I'm going to ask you with passion, what comes to mind when you hear this word passion?
Excitement. Something you can get lost in.
Mm-hmm.
Um, something you really like, something that, yeah, it's like a overall like attractive feeling, something like that.
Yeah. Okay. That's good. Now, I want to lock in on something else that you said. You said something that you like. Now, a lot of people when they say passion, they go a step further and say something that you love, right? But I'm going to flip this on its ear. I read this book by a dude named Mike Murdoch called The Assignment, where he
Mm-hmm.
said, hey, look, if you want to figure out what your purpose is on this planet, if you want to get into your particular and individual assignment, don't focus on what you love. Go all the way on the other end of the spectrum and focus on what you hate.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, okay. So as I'm reading, it begins to make sense because he's saying, look, the thing that you hate, you always talk about. Like, don't let one of your friends mention this thing that you hate in your presence because you're gonna go off. And they're gonna be like,
That's
oh,
right.
we done lit Bokah up. Now, now
Right.
he's going off. We can't stop him, right? And a lot of us have these triggers, but these triggers are related to trauma, a lot of times that we've experienced from early in our youth or in our somewhere in our formative stages in life. And so let me ask this follow-up question that helps kind of give the context to this. Would you agree? I know we don't have fish, climbing trees, but would you agree that the world is broken?
Yeah.
I agree too.
Mm-hmm.
It's broken in a lot of different ways. And it's broken in so many different ways that one way that it's broken affects you different than it affects me. And that brokenness, when it begins to traumatize us, when it begins to marginalize us, when it begins to make us feel like we don't belong, we don't fit in, when it harms us, then we kind of, as we try to get over it as we get older, When we see it operating and hurting other people, we were like, oh, I hate that though. And what you may begin to say, Bokah, is, man, somebody should do something about that. But if you keep pointing at it like somebody needs to fix that, guess who the somebody actually is?
Gotta be me.
It's you.
Yeah.
Because, I know a guy who he gets really passionate about a particular thing and he gets mad when other people don't share his passion. And it's like, they're not meant to share your passion. You will find in this whole vast world, you will find somebody that hates something the way you hate it. But then we get into your talent. Your talent is going to be different from theirs. So how you approach it to fix it is different from theirs. Okay. So I
Yeah.
got ahead a little bit because I'm always that the talent portion of this equation, that's your tool to fix what's broken in the world that affects you in a negative way. That thing that makes you say, I hate that with a passion. You already have something in your hand to address it and to fix it. So I have an example for you. This is like a real life example that really, really brings home how universal this is and how counterintuitive it is. But once you kind of see it unpacked, you'll see how it makes sense. So I got a story.
Okay.
So I went to an elementary school one time and the principal asked me to come in and she said, hey, look, I got these 10 little boys that they're lost. And I need, can you like just come every Friday and talk to them? I'm like, definitely. I'm all on board for that. And I just started to workshop this whole genius concept. So I came into the room, I'm ready to like engage with them. Now, what I failed to mention, Bokah, is these 10 little boys, these 10 little minority youth were in the 3rd, 4th, and 5th grade. They were all in the same class all day. Does that sound right to you?
No.
Nah, it's not. It's broken, right? School system is a reflection of the world that's broken. So as I began talking to them, what I realized very quickly is, okay, you guys are all on IEPs. We would have called this special ed back in the day, but individual education plans. So I'm like, okay. So, I'm trying to help them with their labels. I'm like, hey, y'all know y'all genius, right? And Bokah, they looked at me like, dude, I think you're in the wrong class. Cause he was mad at me. One dude was like, don't call me that. Like he was offended that I had tried to put a positive label, positively affirm him because he had gotten used to negative labels. I have ADHD. I have ADD. You're emotionally, imbalanced. You're disruptive in class. They had gotten so conditioned to receiving negative affirmations that when I came with a positive one, they bucked at it. But then like immediately I noticed they started roasting one another and they thought that was hilarious. They was cutting each other down and they were more comfortable with that than me calling them a genius. So I said, all right, that's fine. Most of the people don't respond well to that question anyways, right? So I said, all right, I know where to get you talking. Tell me what you hate. And they was like, you playing, right? It's like, you really want to hear what I hate? I'm like, yeah, let me hear it. And Bokah, these 10 little boys that could never agree on what to play, when to play it, all universally, almost unequivocally told me the same thing at the same time. And it was like, we hate school, Mr. Key, now what? And then looked at me like, yeah, you messed your workshop all up, didn't we? And I was like, actually, no, you didn't. Because if you think about that fish, if you could talk to a fish and ask that fish that's trying to climb this tree what it hates, it'll tell you that it hates the tree. It'll tell you that it hates having been placed in a system in some type of thing outside of its element and then being told thrive. And it's not surviving. And so these 10 little boys were like fish out of water. But here's what I told them. I said, hey, look, you telling me, all of you telling me that you hate school, if you think about what I'm saying, how the thing that you hate is the thing that you are meant to fix, the only way you can fix the school system that you hate is to become an educator. I was like, you're all educators. And it was like, oh, snap. What do you say? And so I said, no, let me explain it to you. So then I bust this out. Do you know that there's 8 different learning styles?
Yes, I've heard that. Actually, an Uber driver in Atlanta told me that, actually.
Word?
Yeah.
Man, you get some gems dropped on you in these
telling you
lifts. So I have researched that and I agree that there's 8 different learning styles. But Bokah, at most, our secondary schools only teach from 3.
No question. Absolutely right.
And so if you're not a left brain thinker, like mathematics makes sense to you, if you're not a verbal learner, if you're not a visual learner, the 3 styles that they normally enforce, then you're going to feel like a fish out of water. You're going to come in every day like, this information that y'all say I'm supposed to learn, it doesn't make sense to me. It's like you're speaking in another language, literally, and I don't understand. But you keep being told you got to learn it this way. That fish keeps being told you got to climb this tree, and your genius dies a little bit every day. And then eventually you look around like, I hate this place. But what I told him was, I was like, let's explore some of the other learning styles that you probably are more akin to function in. One of the learning styles, clearly, if there's a left brain, there's a right brain learning style. That's where the creatives think. In actuality, Einstein learned from that section. I believe he was a right hemisphere thinker, because look, when he do you know his story at all?
Yeah, that he was like, he was labeled that he couldn't learn when he was young and all that stuff. That I know
It
that.
was. Can you imagine that? The person who we ascribe genius to, he got a letter home. His teacher, his teachers wrote a letter home and basically said to his parents, he might want to make sure he worked with his hands because he's not picking up what we put down here. He was a different type of thinker. Even when he got in college, and he would be like, he would be seen to be daydreaming as he's standing out the window, and the teachers would get frustrated with him and kick him out of class, right? But this dude was imagining creatively what it would look like to ride a beam of light from the sun to the earth. And that's how he came up with the theory of relativity, because he embraced this learning style and didn't let somebody else make him conform to something that's not his element. Passion is all about finding your element. So go back to these little boys. So I'm like, look, if you're one of the learning languages is, or the learning styles is a kinesthetic learning, which means, Bokah, you got to move around to process information. But if you move around in classroom and then in a classroom where that's not acceptable, you're told, sit down, be still. And now you're like, dang it, my learning style is being suppressed. I don't know that I fit in here. Or maybe you're an expeditionary learner. Exploratories means you got to like touch stuff and pick stuff up and manipulate it with your hands. But every time you go to put your hands on something, hey, keep your hands to yourself. Dang it. My learning style is being suppressed. I hate this place.
Yeah.
Or like I said, you're a right brain thinker. And I really believe that a lot of our athletes that are so successful are kinesthetic learners, because they're out on the field, on the court, not having their learning style suppressed, and they're thriving because they're able to move around while they process information in real time. So I told them, look, this is your learning style more than likely, which has been miscalculated and misinterpreted as, oh, you have ADD, you can't be still. Well, no, they can't be still because of their learning style, not because you put some fictitious label on them, right? So I was like, if you, as these 10 little boys, instead of running away from the thing that you hate, you run towards it, equipped with your learning style, and let that learning style become a teaching style, now you're going to reach other people who feel like a fish out of water, and they're going to feel like they belong, and they're going to process the information. And now you begin to fix the very system that marginalized and traumatized you. You feel that?
Yeah, for sure.
So that becomes like a game changer. That's revolutionary for the education system. But every system in the world that involves human beings has the same type of marginalization that it does to people. And if people can get beyond that initial trauma, they can actually realize that they've been equipped to address the very thing that they hate. So Bokah, tell me, man, what do you hate?
Yeah, I was actually talking to my sister about this a couple months ago, but exactly what you said. I hate when people feel like they're stupid because somebody told them that they were stupid.
Okay.
Like I hate when people feel like they can't, like, for instance, having money is for other people.
Mm.
You know what I'm saying? Having a house, that's for other people. That's not for people like me. That stuff, I hate that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Because I mean, why? Because it affects the people who we care about. It
Mm-hmm.
affects people that look like us, right? And the very reason why we look the way we look is the only reason why we don't have certain things, or we're told that we can't have anything, not because of our merit or because of our work ethic or whatever, but because of how we look. That's garbage. So we need
Totally
people
garbage.
that are keen on that, to say like, I need to do something about that. That becomes like the thing that you identify is never something small either. It's always something larger than yourself. But when
Mm-hmm.
you're driven by passion, you won't care. You'll be like David and Goliath, like, let me at him. I'm about to take his head off. I don't care if I have to do it in small incremental steps, or if it's huge steps at a time, whatever it is. Like, I had this old adage that my wife said sometimes, like, how do you eat an elephant?
Mm-hmm.
One piece at a time.
That's right.
Right? You'll just get at it. And so I've already kind of gotten into the next part of it, which is the talent piece. Your talent is your tool, again, to fix the thing that's broken in the world. And in fact, that's what your purpose is. Your purpose in life is to identify your talent and realize that it's a tool to address the thing that you hate, to begin to fix it. So that people behind you can then say, okay, this is easier for me to go through now because Bokah is paving the way. Bokah is the trailblazer. He's setting a path that wasn't here before. Because genius is not about just self-affirmation. It's about, hey, once I'm self-affirmed, you look around and say, who else can I bring up with me? Who else can come along with me in this ride? Whether you do it intentionally or just by your presence and walking through it, somebody else sees it and is like, well, doggone, Bokah can do it. I can do it too. Genius empowers other genius. Genius equips other genius. So that being said, what do you say your talent is?
I'm a great listener. I know my wife is like, how come everybody's always telling you all their secrets and stuff? You know what I'm saying? Like, how they tell you about that? So just people tend to confide in me. That's one. But the other one, I'm good at giving positive energy. I'm good at, making people feel good around me. That type of stuff. So those are two things I would say.
All right. I heard, like, even as you were saying that, I just heard the word radiate.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to try and say this quote from Aquila. What was it? Aquila and the Bee? Aquila. But it basically says, like, when you allow your light to shine, you are also giving other people permission to let their light shine too.
Yeah.
And so, what I see you being able to do in your workspace, in your communities, in your family, as you're this listener who is listening to things that people are going through, things that are traumatized people, and feeling like they have no way out. I guess I just have to accept things as they are. Like, you're the one that can listen to that, but then bring in this positive energy and say, nope, there's another way to do this. And it's cool to inspire somebody with your words, but words without action, words without power, words without example can begin to fall flat. And I sense that you're the type of person, though, that you function within a sphere that you can back up your words of, you can do this with, let me show you how.
Yeah, that's the main thing.
Yeah. So I don't know if you have, like, if you're tapping into, like, any type of consulting that you can do, like, you and your family, but when you can hear well, when you can listen well, and you can give positive affirmations and allow people to see a way out, that's consulting right there.
Yeah.
So do you see that as something that you're doing now, or something that you're thinking about doing?
Yeah, I feel like that's something I'm doing now. And so I'm in the financial advisory space, and a lot of times, some of the leaders in my company are telling us, it's like, sometimes you're just a counselor.
Mm-hmm.
Some people don't realize that they have trauma from childhood interactions with money, and
Yep.
they don't realize they kind of like repelling money for themselves,
Yep.
and not on purpose. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes you got to help them work through that.
Yeah. I see you as somebody who can recalibrate just mindsets, just by talking through that. Because, like I said, sometimes it's very hard. This whole series is about identifying something in people that they can't see for themselves. Because a lot of times we're so ingrained and enmeshed in what we do,
Mm-hmm.
both good and bad, that we can't see it for ourselves. What's the
Mm-hmm.
expression say? You can't see the forest for the trees.
Yeah.
And so it takes somebody to say, hey, what you're doing is related to this trauma from your past. And like, oh, snap, I never saw that. Now that you see it, you can break it. Or, hey, look, what you're doing is, like, actually a part of your genius, because your talent is this and your passion is this. Like, oh, snap. And then now the next time you go to consult somebody, your chest might be out a little bigger, a little more, like, yeah, I know I'm in my lane right now. I'm in my element.
Yeah.
Right. So that's essentially the entire equation right there. Because I've already said that your purpose in life is just to identify your talent as a tool to apply to your passion, to fix the thing that's broken, that irks you, that irritates your flesh, right?
Yeah.
And having said that, having identified that, Bokah, I just want to end the same way I started, by asking you, Bokah, do you consider yourself to be a genius?
I guess I am.
All right.
Thinking about it that way, I didn't think about it that way.
That's what it's all about, man. Just kind of deconstructing some social norms, some status quo type stuff, and then reconstructing it with you on the inside. That's all the goal was, man. So goal accomplished. I appreciate the time. I know you're a man of busy things. I know you got another schedule, so I'm gonna go ahead and let you go. But I just want to end with this, Bokah. This has been what has this been? I was about to say my faith-based version. This has been Inkwell Spoken, Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny. And Bokah, it's my uncommon cue to see the genius in you.
Appreciate you, brother.
Yes, sir.
Appreciate you.
Thanks for joining us for this week's episode. Make sure you pick up the book, Common Genius, Uncommon Destiny, by my dad, Reggie Legend, available on Amazon and at inkwellspoken.com. Connect with us at Inkwellspoken on all social media platforms. If you enjoy our content, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell so you never miss an upload.